And we have 3 on points lined up for you. In on point 1, a fragile ceasefire in West Asia, but Israel signals operations far from over. Is Lebanon outside the ceasefire deal, and will strike continue despite global concern? Israel's envoy Reuven Azar speaks to News9. In on point 2, we discussed Israel's operations in Lebanon amid a 2-week ceasefire in West Asia war. Will IDF operation in Lebanon affect the fragile ceasefire? And in on point 3, my exclusive conversation with Iran's representative of Supreme Leader in India, Dr. Abdul M.N. Elahi, who says that Lebanon's ceasefire was part of the original plan. Now, let's take a quick look at the headlines. Iranian ambassador to Pakistan, Mohammad deletes exposed regarding the arrival of an Iranian delegation in Islamabad for truce talks with US. Voting ends in Assam, Kerala and Puducherry. Fate of Hemanta and Pinarayi hangs in fine balance. 104-year-old Therasamma Parishari becomes Kerala's oldest voter, inspires others with a dedication to democracy. Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister DK launches a scathing attack on TVK Chief Vijay, condemning his recent "Real Congress is with us" remarks as baseless and false, calls Vijay immature in politics. BJP President Nitin Nabin refutes rumours of rift with Annamalai, says he is not upset over party's decision to not field him in the assembly polls and is taking part in the poll campaign. The conflict in West Asia may be showing signs of a pause, but the region remains deeply volatile, with shifting ceasefire signals, high-stakes diplomacy and continued military action shaping the ground reality. From Israel's ongoing operations against Hezbollah in Lebanon to the broader shadow of Iran and the strategic importance of the Strait of Hormuz, the risk of escalation continues to loom large even as the talks of de-escalation gather pace. Amid this uncertainty and rising global concern, I spoke exclusively to Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, on the war, the ceasefire dynamics, the threat perception and what lies ahead. And here is this News9 exclusive conversation with the ambassador. Fragile peace is in existence in West Asia, and on this issue, I'm joined by Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar. So thank you so much for joining us and making time for News9. And let me begin by asking you, how durable is this peace?
Well, I hope that first of all it is implemented. We know that this is 2 weeks of ceasefire that are supposed to give a chance to the 15-point plan of President Trump to be agreed upon and then later on implemented. We stay ready in case it doesn't work. Before the ceasefire, we have exhausted our military targets, but it is very important that we finish this with an agreement, if possible, because that will give stability for the longer term to our region.
There is an issue which came to light, and that being Strait of Hormuz and Lebanon. So will military operations continue in Lebanon because Iran is not letting ships pass from the strait?
Well, that contradicts the terms of the ceasefire. The Iranian regime has committed to have unimpeded movement at the Straits of Hormuz at the request of the Americans. And when it comes to Lebanon, the Americans themselves have corroborated the information that this is not part of the ceasefire. They are trying to link everything together, but we know it's not linked. We have a separate ceasefire for Gaza. We had a separate ceasefire for Lebanon, which Hezbollah breached, actually, by attacking us unilaterally. So Israel will continue taking action in Lebanon until our security cabinet gets to the conclusion that we have achieved our military goals.
A lot of people would like to know, why are operations in Lebanon so important to the security of the state of Israel?
Well, we are being attacked, by Hezbollah terrorists, and the entire northern Israel is subject to barrages of missiles and rockets. In addition to that, in the first few days of this new confrontation, Hezbollah was firing anti-tank missiles on our communities in the border. That was very dangerous. This required the Israel Defense Forces to enter deeper into southern Lebanon. I must remind the viewers that according to the terms of the ceasefire that was signed last year, the Lebanese government was supposed to clean any Hezbollah presence from southern Lebanon. They didn't do that. So actually, it is Lebanon that is in breach of the ceasefire. It is Hezbollah that attacked our communities, and now we are defending ourselves.
So is Israel more secure today after the operation?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, you mean the operation in Iran? Or yes. Yeah, absolutely. Look, before the 7th of October, the Iranian regime, this empire of terror, was having army proxies all over our region, including in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Gaza, and in Yemen. And they were controlling 4 Arab capitals. Only Hezbollah had 150,000 rockets and missiles. And they have a commando force of tens of thousands of terrorists that were ready to invade the state of Israel. We have reduced that threat substantially, if you remember, following the Beeper attack and other actions that we took. So this round, Hezbollah started with 20,000 rockets instead of 150,000. The same goes to Hamas. Hamas was reduced to rubble when it comes to their military capabilities, and now we have a buffer zone in Gaza that is preventing Hamas from attacking our communities. The same we have in Syria. And thanks to this operation, Roaring Lion, we've been able to devastate the military machinery of Iran itself, which before the 7th of October was completely immune. They were, waging this war of aggression against our region with impunity. But now they are penetrated. We have taken out their top leadership. We have taken out the entire military industry. We've taken out the majority of the elements of the nuclear program, so they are now years from achieving nuclear weapons. We have devastated and degraded substantially their ballistic missile capability, and especially the production of ballistic missiles. And of course, the entire navy of Iran is wiped out, their air force is wiped out, so they are going to have to invest hundreds of billions of dollars if they choose to rebuild that capability, but it's going to be on the account of the Iranian people. Iran is a country with a lot of resources, but the Iranian people deserve a better leadership, and that's why beyond these 2 goals that we put forward at the beginning of removing the 2 existential threats, the nuclear and the ballistic missile threat, we said that we are going to prepare the ground for the Iranian people to embrace their future by degrading the oppressors of that regime. We took out all the oppressors that were in charge of massacring tens of thousands of Iranian citizens only a couple of months ago. So I think that is very substantial, that changes the balance of power in our region, and is very important for the stability of our region and for peace in the future.
Iran is saying that they're going to, the cost of rebuilding will be through the taxation at the Strait of Hormuz. Global South feels that this is so unfair, it's an open sea. It's the Sea of Oman, the Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, so many, sea doesn't belong to anyone. So the feeling being that, the Hormuz has been turned into some sort of a toll plaza.
It's completely ridiculous. It's not going to happen. The Omanis have only yesterday declared officially that they are not going to collect fees for the Iranians. This is not only illegitimate, it's illegal. According to international law, including customary maritime law, these conduits have to remain open, and nobody is going to be able to impose any fees on anybody. So it's a kind of an attempt of the Iranian regime to put pressure on world markets, but it's not going to fly.
So from a military perspective, was Israel surprised by the asymmetric warfare which Iran started conducting. One, in terms of the distribution of the country in 31 or 29 commands, which was for the first time to be seen. And secondly, inflicting pain on the GCC countries. For example, they hit Al Jubail. Al Jubail contributes 12 to 17% to the Saudi Arabian GDP, and they were able to hit them deep inside. The units that are spread across thousands of kilometers.
It's not the first time. If you remember, about 5 years ago, they attacked Aramco and temporarily freeze the capability of Saudi Arabia to export oil. So yes, I think it was a kind of surprise, the level of savagery that the Iranian regime has decided to deploy or to act upon vis-a-vis so many of their neighbors, because they were stating before the war that these are their friends. So how come they are punishing their friends? And they are punishing countries outside the region as well, like India, and like countries in South and East Asia. This is completely unacceptable. I think that the only reason they did that is because they couldn't have any kind of counter pressure following our operation. But at the end of the day, it's going to boomerang against them, because nobody is going to agree to be extorted by this regime in the future. And if they try to continue doing that, not only that they will be subject to action by the United States and Israel, but also other countries might decide that they want to participate in opening the straits themselves. And the European countries have said that once the ceasefire is there, they are going to participate in making sure that the straits are open.
How seriously are you looking at the threat which the Houthis posed at Bab al-Mandab for the few 48 hours? Because then you lose the control of Suez, and the Red Sea again becomes very, very...
well, there's no doubt that the Iranian regime has the capability of causing a lot of damage to the world economy. And the question is whether the world economy or the countries of the world are going to agree to that. At the end of the day, if we don't stand up to bullying, bullying will continue. And imagine what would happen to this region of West Asia if we would allow this regime to acquire a military nuclear arsenal and to acquire 20,000 ballistic missiles and hundreds of thousands of drones. They would actually be in a position that they could choke the entire economy in a much more significant way. So actually, this temporary crisis that we are seeing is nothing compared to what would happen if this terror regime would have been given the way to create this terrible threat that was casting a shadow on our region.
Every war has a political objective, and one of the political objectives was that the people should rise up. The second, which we read in newspapers, was complete destruction of the ballistic missile program. The third was to ensure that the Iran loses the capability to build a bomb, uranium enrichment. Have those three goalposts been met? Because regime change or that sort of a thing has not happened on the ground.
No, it doesn't. It didn't happen yet. I think that it wasn't part of our plan to make sure it happens now, because we are not invading Iran. It's up to the Iranian people to decide. We are going to prepare the ground for that, and that's exactly what we did. Whether the Iranian people will actually rise up again, it's a question. We don't know. But that wasn't part of the plan. Part of the plan, as you said before, and I repeated many times, was to remove the existential threats and prepare the ground for the people of Iran to embrace the future. It might happen now, it might happen a year from now, we don't know.
The Gaza operations were carried out. For example, the operations in Lebanon have been carried out. What makes you sure after, I'll use the phrase, after mowing the lawn, that you have the time of, like, say, next 15 to 20 years, where your opponents are not in the capacity to attack the state of Israel?
Well, first of all, it connects to the previous point. If the Iranian people will embrace their future and change the policy of the regime, this gives us the hope that this dynamic will change and we will not be obliged in a few years from now to engage in another war. So I think the lessons of this is that not only us, but the entire region and the international community have to build the defenses to defend ourselves and deter these aggressors from their future intentions, because there's no doubt what their intentions are. They said they want to exterminate the state of Israel. They were taking control of the region aggressively. They were proliferating weapons of mass destruction to terrorist organizations. We already know all that. And now they also threaten the world economy. So it's about time that we, work together in a more cohesive way to counter this kind of dangers.
Let me ask a question from the Indian perspective. India is a victim of terrorism. Israel is also a victim of terrorism.
Yes.
The October attack, Israel was the victim and 3,000 people were brutally killed. Now, despite India taking measured punitive action, this behavior of the state of Pakistan hasn't changed. It continues to promote terrorism. It continues to fight a war in Afghanistan. It behaves the same way it has been behaving. What makes Israel so sure that despite taking strong measures, the behavior of the state of Iran would change? The behavior of the state would change?
Well, we are doing our best. We don't know whether it will change. What we are obliged to do is to defend ourselves, especially when we see that there is an imminent threat on our existence. So we'll continue to defending ourselves. We tried in many ways to dissuade these people to change course. We engaged diplomatically with many countries that engaged with them. We applied economic pressure. There are many, many things that we've done in order to try to see how we can, change the situation. But unfortunately, the radical regime of Iran has an agenda that is theological, that is radical, that doesn't take into account the interests of the Iranian people, that is ready to kill tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in our region. Okay? So this is a common challenge that we have. It's not only a challenge upon Israel. We are going to do the best that we can with the limited force that we have to try to change the circumstances. I'm not sure we're going to succeed.
Tell me why. I mean, you're in the business of diplomacy. America and Israel were able to achieve the military objectives. I mean, there is no doubt about that. But in terms of political and narrative objectives, how has Iran scored with their narrative that they have been able to withstand and absorb the war? They have also hit out at facilities, desalination plants, oil plants, gas plants, affecting the supply of helium, affecting supply of so many other petrochemical commodities. But they still have that sympathy. Why has
sympathy by whom?
In general, that they have been able to withstand the war.
Some people,
why has that happened?
There is an overstatement of the popularity of this regime. I think that first of all, the Iranian people don't like this regime, and we've seen, despite the fact that the internet was shut down for the last 50 days, we saw pictures of people in Tehran rejoicing from the fact that the regime is being pounded. So, and we've seen that the regime didn't have any choice but to invite militias from outside Iran to continue taking control of the situation, because they know the Iranian people are against them. So they're not that popular, okay? And for sure they are not popular in the Gulf countries in which they were attacked. And they are not popular in Europe, in which they have been planning terrorism plots. They are not popular in Latin America, in which they have been present also with terrorism activity. There are already 42 countries that have designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. So I don't think that they're very popular. Maybe some people might think otherwise.
And lastly, is Israel satisfied with the response of the GCC nations in last 40 days? Have they stood by the state of Israel?
Yes, we are coordinated with many of the Gulf countries. We are doing this either directly or indirectly through CENTCOM, the American command. We've been supplying platforms to many of those countries that allow themselves to defend themselves from threats that are emanating from Iran. And I'm sure that we are going to continue cooperating in order to cope with the threat.
खेलता है झूलता उछलता है दौड़ता कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया
Other Seer Teenage Tantrum.